Welcome to the Alcohol Free Life podcast. I'm Janey Grace. This is for you if you've quit the booze or you'd like to, or maybe you're just sober curious. I'll bring you tips and motivation without any judgment, and there'll be inspiration from experts, quit-lit authors, and sober heroes. Hi, I'm Janey Grace. Welcome to the podcast. Hope you enjoyed last week's where I did something a little bit different. Maybe by now you've had a chance to go and see Rocket Man after my review. There's been lots of press, still continuing weeks after the movie, about, kind of how brave Elton was really to allow all of that stuff to go out there about his addiction. But I've read lots of times that he really felt it was important not to leave anything out. I mean, there's been a lot of furore over the gay sex scene, of course, and he felt, he really fought with the studio over that to be able to leave that in, and similarly to really show the whole addictive stuff that was going on. And he is brave to do that, and I think that movie is. I think it's just going to be so inspirational for so many people. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. It's back to normal, if you like, this week with a guest. And I'll tell you who that is in just a moment. First of all, I want to remind you of our event on June 17th, Monday, June 17th. If you're able to come to London, it's a free event. It's hosted by the charity My Yard. And this time we're going to do it very slightly differently. We have a guest in the form of Jo DeRosa, who is absolutely inspirational. She does everything via meditation, if you like, and mindfulness. But she's a very realistic person. She's been there, done it, got the T-shirt. She was a cocaine and alcohol addict for many years. But she's been clean for 6 years, and she's written a book, Quantum Sobriety, and she runs amazing retreats. She runs inner guidance retreats, which are kind of 3 or 4 day retreats, just at the most beautiful retreat centre in Suffolk. And then she also has these kind of rehab, if you like, rehab retreats. And I'm told that the results are just literally totally transformational, really, really life-changing. Just 5 days, but everything is done via meditation. So she's going to talk to us about how the mind works, and I'm really looking forward to being able to speak with Jo at our event. And we thought, in addition, we would have a few taster treatments. So I haven't jacked them all up yet, but we're definitely going to have somebody offering Reiki, somebody offering sound healing. And so we'll just start the evening a little bit earlier if you'd like a taster treatment. So we'll start at 6 o'clock. So you need to go on to Eventbrite to get your tickets. It's self-care for the sober curious. And we'd absolutely love to see you there. It's very informal. If you haven't been to anything like this before, I absolutely promise you, you're not going to feel uncomfortable. We're very friendly. It's very low key. Everyone is welcome. With absolutely no judgment. That's not what this is about at all. So it would be just great if you could join us for Self-Care for the Sober Curious on June the 17th. And then also the 26th, Wednesday the 26th of June, I have just been asked to do another event in London. This one does have a ticket price, but this is a members club in central London. It sounds like an amazing venue, really amazing. I'll tell you a little bit more about that nearer the time, but I'm super excited to announce that my guests on that evening are going to be Millie from Sober Girl Society and Scott, the boy who drank too much. So we're going to be doing a whole bunch of stuff around being sober curious, being alcohol free, and then I'm going to chat with a couple of young people who are just really getting the message out there. So we're looking forward to that. That's Wednesday the 26th of June. I can't tell you how to get tickets yet, but just keep checking in on Instagram or Facebook, and we'll be announcing that really soon. If you don't already follow me on Instagram and Facebook, it's at Janey Lee Grace. So please join us there. And do please continue to give us your feedback for the podcast, because it's just great. It's great for me to be able to hear what you like and if you've got any suggestions. And as a result of people writing to me, I'm going to be featuring some listeners. It's lovely to get people's stories. So I've recorded an interview with Pat from Patchwork Recovery. So I'm going to be playing that to you real soon. He was just great, just so inspirational. I love it. And it was interesting because our stories are very, very similar. And myself and Pat, you'll hear it when we play the interview, but it's on my mind because I've only just done the interview with him. And it was really interesting because he said, he felt exactly the same as I did, in the sense that when he absolutely knew that it was time to give up drinking, well, in fact, it went on for a long time, that kind of the voice in the head. But when he knew, he couldn't understand why he couldn't figure it out instantly, why it seemed so difficult. When you're a relatively smart person and you're relatively in control in other areas of your life, why does this feel so hard? It's an interesting one. And he also explained what it's like when you live with someone who doesn't have the same thing going on, some people don't have a voice in their head. How lucky are they? But some of us do. And really it is connecting with people who know what this feels like, so that you continue to get support and inspiration and all of that stuff. Anyways, I'm absolutely just so chuffed that I got to interview my next guest, because when I first quit the booze, I absorbed myself in Quitlet. I just couldn't get enough of it. I started with the Sober Diaries, I think, and then went on to the Unexpected Joy of Being Sober, and then went through a whole bunch of US books. I read Dry by Augustine Burroughs, and just absolutely loads. I'll document them all one day, all the ones that I've really loved. And one of the books that I read when I was a couple of months in was Mrs. D is Going Without. And it made me kind of laugh and cry in equal measures. I absolutely related to Lotta's story. And I thought she'd just be a great guest. She's based in New Zealand, so I was amazed when she said she would be willing to do it. So we were able to record it kind of late for me, early for her. All good. And so, yeah, look forward to knowing what you think about the interview. And if you haven't read the book yet, it's so good. It's really, really worth grabbing hold of a copy. So here you go, Lotta Dann. Welcome, and one of my favourite books. Oh, I loved your book so much. Mrs. D is Going Without. I think I read it when I was about 8 to 10 weeks into giving up drinking. So for anyone who hasn't read it yet, tell us a little bit about you. You're in New Zealand, we should say. So thank you so much for making the time difference work, and tell us a little bit about your story.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's lovely to be here. I suppose my story really isn't special. It's quite an ordinary story of just a boozy housewife. I was living in the suburbs in Auckland at the time, which is our largest city, and we had 3 young children, and I was really stuck and miserable with my drinking. I was easily a bottle of wine a night, but it was noticeably getting heavier and heavier. I just wasn't in control of it, and I was waking up at 3 a.m. constantly feeling really guilty, trying to moderate and control and not managing it. And luckily I had this voice in my head that was sort of saying, this isn't right, there's something wrong here. And it was drowning out the other voice in my head saying, oh, it's fine, everyone drinks, you deserve it, you're a hard-working woman, And the 2 voices were conflicting, but luckily the one that was saying there's something wrong here got louder and louder until eventually I quit. And it was after I'd hidden an empty bottle from my husband. So it was a new dysfunction. A new
low, yeah. I remember reading you said that, and I thought, oh my goodness, that's so resonated, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and a lot of people, hiding empty bottles is a really common behaviour for problem drinkers, and a lot of people do it for a very long time. And I often try and explain why it was for me that it was just that one bottle, one time that got me to stop. And I think the reason was, like I said, I'd had this debate with myself for quite a while, a good 2-3 years before I had that bottle. So I was being really honest with myself, and I could see that this was progressing and getting worse while I was trying to control it. So that's why for me, that was it. And I made the huge and scary decision to completely remove alcohol from my life. I mean, who does that?
I know. Well, fortunately, more and more of us now, thanks to books like yours. And your story could exactly be mine. It was exactly the same thing. I was waking up at 3 a.m., that same voice, the wine witch or whatever it is in the evening would get me to drink. And then the other voice in the morning would wake me at 3 a.m. and tell me there's something wrong. I totally resonate with that. Let me just ask you about this mum thing, though, because this is something that people talk about a lot in the UK. I don't know if it's the same in New Zealand, but the messages that are being put out there to mums and with drinking, I mean, intertwined doesn't even cover it. It's off the scale. I mean, I know in our culture, as you say, everybody drinks and drinking is everywhere. But the mummy thing is really big. This idea that mummy's little helper, you need something at the end of the day to relax. And just recently, I saw on one of the forums that I'm part of, there's an organization called Bounty, I think it is, that give new mums products, nappies and various things. And they placed an ad on Facebook, a kind of a meme on Facebook of the picture of a couple of mums with children, with babies. And this slogan said something like, the reason it's so expensive having children is because of all the wine you have to buy. And this woman actually called them out on it and they removed it. But that's just one tiny example of the fact that these messages are everywhere. Is it the same where you are?
Yeah, absolutely. And, a lot of it's pushed by women themselves on social media, sharing these memes and what have you. Yeah. It really annoys me because, it is driven by the industry. There's a lot of very clever, successful big brain marketers and advertisers who can think up very clever ways to target new markets. And there was a real shift where they started targeting women. Yeah. And sort of introducing this idea that, hey, this is a really good idea. You do a great job. You work hard. You deserve this. And we women have sort of picked it up because why wouldn't we? It's legal. It's available. It's everywhere. And it does the job. It does relax you. It does, take the edge off. But the problem is it's temporary. And then it has problems that are compounded on top of that with the lack of sleep. And my thinking is the biggest problem is a disconnection with yourself because you're never really sitting with your own sort of raw emotions. So I'm really annoyed by it. And I just sort of feel like alcohol has inserted itself into these very lovely, natural female things. Number one, mothering. Yeah. And number two, female bonding. The great kind of sisterhood where we get together with our girlfriends and we lift each other up. And it's amazing. I mean, I don't know what I would do without my girlfriends. And alcohol has kind of inserted itself into the middle of these things as if it's the most important factor, and it's not. It's really detrimental, I believe. Yeah. And I do think a lot of women are starting to really think about it, but at the same time, they're wrestling with it because there's all this sort of expectation that you should be doing that. So it's really hard for us. It's like another thing that we're having to deal with right now.
Yeah, it really is. You're right. I mean, the whole play date thing, when your kids are young and you meet another parent and it's, I wonder if we could be friends or our kids could be friends. And you go to pick your kid up and it's, we want a glass of wine and wow, if you don't, how boring are you? It's like, you can feel yourself written off before you start.
Totally. And I'm sure there's people who think I'm boring because I don't drink, but I just have to not care. And I just have to think, what is important about this get together? It's us getting to know each other. It's the fact that we can share about what we're doing. And I just really try and focus on all those other things so that I don't give my glass and the liquid that's in it all the power. Yeah. And if I have that attitude, it rubs off on the person I'm with. And I'm sorry, if they really genuinely think I'm boring, that's their problem, not mine.
Yeah. Well, certainly some friends do fall by the wayside. It's the way it is, isn't it? But hopefully you meet the true friends. But just remind us, and obviously I've read the book, but for the people who haven't read it yet, remind us how you stopped then. What did you do? And how difficult was it for you in the beginning? Because on this podcast, what I want to do more than anything is share this message that, being, giving up drink is fantastic. And you do, when you get past a certain stage, life is so much better. I really want to spread that message. However, I do also want to sort of share the realities because, for a lot of people, the first few weeks can be tough as hell. I mean, I didn't know who I even was. I had no idea who I was. I'd lost all sight of what was important to me. It was very, very strange feeling. I didn't actually feel grounded for probably 3 months. Oh, and I kept it a secret as well from everyone.
Right. Yeah.
What's that
and that's
about?
not uncommon. That's not uncommon. I think a lot of people, even in really good, strong relationships, don't tell their significant other because it's such a personal. It is such a personal thing because your relationship with alcohol is a very deeply personal thing, and no one else can hear the dialogue you have with yourself and your brain about it. So I don't think that's unusual. But so basically, I love being sober like you, and I shout it from the rooftops, but I also don't gild the lily. It is hard at first. There's a big adjustment. You have to learn how to be with yourself with a wide open brain all the time. I had to learn how to be sad and angry, 2 emotions that I'd avoided my whole life and were uncomfortable, and I didn't like them. I mean, I'm better at them now. In fact, I quite like them because they tell me something. But anyway, you have to learn how to socialise. You have to learn how to get through 5 o'clock. I mean, 5 o'clock was wine o'clock. So
absolutely.
So, I mean, I set out to do it on my own. I didn't join any groups. I didn't seek out any counselling. I just, set my own path. I was a bit of a lonely boat in the ocean. So my decision was that I was going to write to myself every day and just keep myself honest and write out what I was doing and how I was feeling, and that was going to be my main tool. And then I chose to do that online because I can type very fast, being a trained journalist. So I typed it in an anonymous blog on the internet, and I wrote to myself every day. Every single day I wrote about how I'd done, what was hard, what was easy, and it's a roller coaster. I mean, there's up and down, and it's hard. And and that sort of worked for me, and I found that externalizing my thoughts and getting them out of my head was really powerful.
Yeah.
And I also discovered I had this writing voice which was quite upbeat and jaunty. Even when I was really feeling miserable, I would write, with heaps of exclamation marks and kind of make jokes to myself, and so that lifted me up as well. And then the remarkable thing that happened is that people started reading my blog and commenting to me, and
so all of a sudden you're accountable then, aren't you? Which is great as well.
Well, but also I just felt understood. I felt I wasn't alone, and my whole life I have been a bit of a lonely boat in my head, and this was the first time that I actually felt like I belonged with a tribe of people who really got me. And people online were just so lovely, just kind and supportive. And so the blog grew into this incredible community, and that's what's kept me sober, I've absolutely no doubt.
Yeah, fantastic. And what have been the benefits for you then? I will go on and talk about your other book, Mrs. Dear's Going Within, because I also loved that one. So I'll go on and talk about that. But what were the main benefits for you, and when did they kind of kick in? Because that's the other thing that I try and warn people. I was under the impression that by about week 3, I would have lost loads of weight and I'd have tons of energy and I'd be sleeping great. Actually, the opposite was true in all areas. I couldn't sleep. I think I gained weight with all the chocolate I was eating, and I had no energy at all for ages. But the benefits do kick in, but it can take a while. But what have been the notable things for you?
Well, the first thing was I had a really clean house because I used to clean when I was craving. So that was good. My sleep improved pretty quickly. I know that doesn't happen for everyone, but mine did. I just started sleeping great. I did lose some weight, although I put it back on again because I got into the sugar, but, that's an ongoing. The main thing is, and it's so, I'll do a warning here. I'm going to get cliched, but the main thing was really just getting in touch with myself and realizing quite quickly that I'd been a real emotion avoider.
Yeah.
And that I'd used wine to try and suppress anything negative, and in doing so I'd also suppressed, positive things as well. I'd just been dulled for years. And when I got sober and I was on this roller coaster, I quickly realized, whoa, this is what I've been doing, and this is what getting sober is actually all about. It's about me learning how to deal with emotions and stuff. And so that is when it got really interesting for me, because I was just actually quite fascinated by that. And it's like I was doing my own sort of petri dish study on myself. How do you deal with emotions? And I'm 7 years on now and I'm still figuring it out. But that was the kind of big work for me, was just really unpicking myself. And in doing so, oh my God, it's just amazing to really get to know yourself. And because I started connecting better with myself, all of my relationships were improving. Wow. And they weren't bad to start with, but I just realized that I'd been this kind of diminished version of myself. And I suddenly became very grounded. That was the word you used. Yeah. Brilliant. Grounded and kind of real and just totally present all the time. And I mean, it was just amazing. The hard stuff was happening as well, socially and what have you, but just that kind of really getting in touch with myself is just absolute gold.
And I think you had a house move, didn't you? So I mean, that's a massive upheaval. Am I right about that? Didn't you move house?
Yeah, we relocated about 5 months after I got sober.
That's
we
right.
Relocated cities.
I mean, that's huge. That's a big emotional shift. Whatever state you're in, isn't it?
Oh, and I just cried and cried and cried. And funnily enough, we'd actually moved up to this city 3 years prior when I was really boozing, and I had just pounded the wines through that whole move. And here I was going back down. And all I was doing was crying and crying. But, again, it was like once we moved and I look back and I think of those tears, I feel really resolved about it. It was emotional. It was right to cry. Don't suppress. It's so cliched, isn't it, Janey? I mean,
no, I think it's great that we can talk about it because it's so true. And, a lot of the people I talk to have had, years and years and years of mental health issues and anxiety and depression and all of this stuff. And not that goes away immediately. It doesn't. But at least you can face whatever it is. And as you say, sometimes it's absolutely right to cry. Totally.
It's just honouring your feelings. It's really just, they're there for a reason. We are made this way for a reason. Yes, it's uncomfortable, but it will pass. Let it out.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that you say you're 7 years on. I hadn't realized that. And would you say then that the benefits kind of keep on coming? Because, you might think, well, after that many years, would you even, unless you were a writer, would you even ever think about it? But obviously you do.
Yeah, I do. I mean,
it's still a thing.
Yeah, I don't crave anymore. I don't miss alcohol. I don't wish I could have it. So all of that hard work is really past. But it's amazing. Every year I celebrate my soberversary.
That's great.
I think, whoa, last year was the really big one. And then the next year I'll celebrate my next soberversary and I'll go, whoa, this last year's been really illuminating. And I said to my, I've got this wonderful friend who's been like 35 years in recovery. And she said to me, that's the way it goes, Lotta. Every year you look back and you go, well, there's something else that kind of emerged. Because only through living for a long period of time sober and going through things, stuff happens all the time. And only by going through it and coming out of it and taking, and that takes time, sometimes months, and then reflecting, do you kind of realize. So it's a very gentle process. And I think when I say gentle, I mean, because it can be fraught, but I mean long, slow process. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think when we're boozing, we're used to quick, fast, hard reactions, and getting sober and adjusting. It's a really kind of just having to kind of ride those waves of life and realizing what you're learning as you go. And once you've adjusted to that way of living, honestly, it is so much better, isn't it? Don't you think?
Totally. Absolutely. I feel braver, actually. I think my world had gotten small. I'd become fearful of everything. I'm interested in the second book, Mrs. D is Going Within, which I just loved. Just tell us about the idea for that then, how that came about.
That one was a really hard one to put out because I was writing about stuff that I wasn't really resolved with. So
meditation and yoga and a lot of people, when they do decide to stop drinking, that is often the time when they start to think, well, should I do something like yoga? Should I have a time of reflection? It can often be the first time people think of it, can't it?
Yeah, and I mean, basically I got to about 3 or 4 years sober and I was not craving anymore and not missing it, but I was still not I was still a bit messy and I was starting to get a little bit anxious about stuff. And I just realized then, okay, I've dealt with the booze. Now I've got to deal with other stuff. And I had holes in my life that I needed filling. I needed better kind of lifestyle things that kind of helped me deal with stuff. So it's not uncommon. You get to this kind of second phase of recovery where you have to kind of go a wee bit deeper. And and that's when I started looking into mindfulness, which I used to just dismiss as like whatever, trendy gobbledygook. But I actually was like, okay, what is this? I'm going to learn about it. And so I literally got books, listened to podcasts, and kind of did a little home university course on mindfulness. And lo and behold, it's amazing. I mean, I use it to this day. Right now, we've just been through a terrible tragedy with my mother-in-law passing away, this incredible woman. And I have really been turning to mindfulness to just help me deal with it. So that's been a life changer. And just other things like sugar and, needing to move my body and the second book is just about the kind of techniques that I've started implementing to try and just help me deal with life.
Yeah. So what would be a typical, kind of morning routine for you then if you do this stuff in a morning?
Well, here's the thing. I don't meditate. I practice mindfulness. And so I don't sit and do a formal meditation. I've tried it. It just hasn't kind of caught on for me. I may turn to it if I need. But what I do is I practice mindfulness regularly. So I'm often in the shower or brushing my teeth. And I just recognize the patterns of my mind. What am I doing? Am I lost in thought? Am I ruminating about that email from yesterday again? And I can recognize now what I'm doing. And I just pull myself down into the moment and I go, what am I seeing with my eyes? What is my hand doing? Can I feel my breath? And the more you do that, the more it becomes a habit. And the more that you can just recognize what you're doing in your head. Our brains are very clever at kind of running off, thinking, busy brain. And I just can recognize when I'm doing that, pull it back and ground myself down. And if I do that regularly, which I do throughout the days, especially when it's, a tough time, then I'm just calmer and better. So, there's a slight difference between mindfulness and formal meditation. And like I say, I don't do the formal practice so much.
Yeah. And what would be your, if you like, top self-care tip then? I always try and, because when we're drinking we think of the booze as our treat. Of course we now know it's not a treat at all, but we used to think of it as a treat, particularly mums. It's like, oh wow, I deserve this. So what would you recommend that people perhaps in the early weeks and months actually treat themselves with, big or small?
I'm really big on self-care, sober treats. For me, it was all about fresh flowers, scented candles. Scented candles are so good ones, are really expensive. And they feel quite kind of frivolous, but they are, heaven, I love. So it's, bubble baths. I'm really big on herbal tea now. So I will buy myself a ridiculously expensive box of flavoured tea of some description. And I think it's not about the nice smell or the nice cup of tea. It's about that act of I'm buying this for me because I'm worth it. I deserve this treat. This is for me. So that whole process, that transaction is important, I think. So, do it and don't feel guilty. Get yourself some absolutely crazily expensive glossy magazine and a bath bomb and a nice box of tea and a scented candle all in one shop. Go home and use them all. Like, you are worth it. If you're actually in the process of getting sober, what you're doing is heroic, truly. There's, so many people that don't, and it's hard work, and you deserve absolutely all the help you can get. So treat yourself.
Yeah, brilliant. And so what's next for you then? Are you planning any more books? Do you do book tours? are you going to come to the UK and talk to us?
I'd love to. I just entered a competition online to win tickets to see the Spice Girls, which I really would.
Oh, great. Oh, cool. I just interviewed Jess Glynn, who's one of the support acts. So,
nice. I'm actually working on my third book at the moment.
Oh, cool. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, it's another non-fiction book, but it's not a memoir. I am writing about women and alcohol. I'm just going to really unpick this whole wine mum culture. Excellent. And look at the way that the alcohol industry targets women. And I'm just going to bring in the voices of a lot of women telling their stories. So at the moment, I'm in the midst of doing a whole lot of interviews with these incredible women. Some of them are sober, some of them are still drinking. and just hearing their voices. Because what I'm sick of is the disconnect between what we're presented outwardly with alcohol in our communities and online with advertising and everything. It's all fine, it's all normal. And what I know the truth to be, because of the work I do, of how many people are miserable and struggling. Exactly. And I'm really sick of this, the truth versus what, the image. And so I'm just going to try and sort of uncover that and write a book that maybe opens some people's eyes.
Brilliant. When's that likely to be out?
My deadline for delivery is November, and cool. I think they want to publish in the middle of next year.
Yeah, great. And just one last question then. Do you, and I don't know if it's something you write about or if it's part of your world, but in the UK we have, there is a bit of a sober revolution going on. It's really cool. We've got some dry bars popping up. We've got a huge rise in fabulous artisan alcohol-free drinks. I mean, that market is starting to become massive here, which is really good news. And there's also quite a big mindful drinking movement. So people who are moderating, there are mindful drinking festivals. What's your take on it? Is it the same in New Zealand first? And what's your take on it?
It's sort of the same in New Zealand. We do have a big growth of the lovely non-alcoholic drinks ranges, and that's coming from some of the big companies too, which is good. And we do have far more people speaking out, like high-profile people speaking out about their drinking issues and being happily, proudly in recovery, which is amazing. We don't have a mindful drinking movement that I know of. So yes, it's definitely shifting. It's a big boat to turn around, but I feel like there might be a bit of a shift happening there.
Yeah. Cool.
And what do I think of it? I mean, I think it's great. I mean, honestly, I just think any truth that can be heard, like I say, the more truth that can rise up and sort of push through all these myths that we see constantly and that we've been conditioned to believe. I mean, we still live in New Zealand in a society that firmly believes this is how you have fun, this is how you relax, this is how you bond. It's still a very drinking heavy culture. So anything that can kind of chip away at that is just fantastic in my book. And, the truth is there are many people who can moderate and control alcohol. I know that's why it's a hard drug to regulate. But I just think we also need to be really accepting and open about the fact that there are many of us who can't.
Absolutely.
And, have not drinking be more of a viable, acceptable option.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I always say I came without an off switch. I was born without that little bit of equipment. So that's
same here.
And as I said at the beginning of this interview, the way you described, the voice in your head, the 3 a.m. voice in your head, that was exactly me. The addictive voice, that was absolutely where I was at. It was coming at me loud and clear for years. And I remember seeking help many times. I've spoken about this on the podcast before, but I would have therapeutic treatments, or I'd see the GP, or it didn't matter what it was. But if I felt safe and confident with the person, I would sort of sometimes at the end sort of say, "Oh, and by the way, I don't know whether you might be able to help me, but I think I'm actually drinking too much," and I'd sort of share a little bit of my panic. And on every single case, they would just say, "It sounds perfectly reasonable to me," because of course they were doing just the same.
Yeah.
And because it's so ingrained in the culture that, and clearly they didn't have the voice. Maybe they were drinking, but they didn't have the voice. Not one single person ever said to me, "Oh, I know that voice you're talking about." And yet I now know that there are millions of us, like, you and me and many, many more, who have that addictive voice that tells them that it's time to, stop doing what it is you think you want to do, but you can't stop and you don't want to do it anyway.
And I think we need to accept that for those who don't have that voice, they genuinely can't relate. And for them, they might say to us, "Look, just have one if you're worried."
Absolutely. That was what my husband used to say all the time. Just have one. Can't you just have one?
Yeah. And it's not that they're being dismissive of us. It's just for them, it is that easy. Yeah. So they really can't understand. And so I always just try and sort of just say, look, we are different. And just feel lucky that you don't have that voice. But please understand, for me, it is not that easy. And for many of us.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic to talk to you. And I just loved your books. For anyone who hasn't read them yet, you can't get a better
recommendation than mine, because they're such fun. They're very, very honest. As you say, we really, it was so relatable. All of your stories, and you're very honest. You're very open there, but you've managed to make it funny and fun. And so I really, really appreciated your books. Thank you so much for being a guest. It's an absolute honour to be able to speak to you. And if you definitely, you have to promise me, if you come to see the Spice Girls, we'll hook up.
If I win, I would. I'd love to do that. Thank you so much for having me on.
Surely they're coming to New Zealand, aren't they?
No, I don't think so. I don't think they're at all spending that widely. Didn't they have a falling out and there was some drama? And
we're saying all of this. Let's see if the tour actually happens.
That's right.
We'll see. Anyway, Mrs. D, thank you. Really appreciate it. Thanks so much for being a guest.
So grab yourself a copy of both those books. And a reminder again, our event, June 17th, go to Eventbrite, Self-Care for the Sober Curious, and look out for that event on Wednesday, 26th of June as well. That's going to be in central London. I wanted to give a mention, by the way, to We Love Lucid. I haven't had a chance to interview Lauren yet, who's the founder, but I've had a look at some of the things they do, and it just looks great, because what they aim to do is to connect like-minded solo travellers. So if you're wanting to go off on holiday and you do not want that boozy thing, so you don't want to go with your friends or even necessarily your family, you want to do something on your own. So you want a great holiday, but without the booze. And that's exactly what they do. So they combine adventure and culture, and they have sort of really enriching experiences, but all without the booze, all lucid, as the name says. And she asked me if I flag up, we've got one event coming up, which is actually a women-only one, this one, and that's 17th of July. And you stay 4 nights in a hotel. This is in Spain, by the way. You get a Spanish cooking class included, a hike, a traditional goat's cheese making experience, a daytime kayak trip. You go to an Andalusian white village, a Spanish lesson, a flamenco performance. I mean, it sounds fantastic. I would love to go. Sadly, it's just after my TEDx talk, so I can't make it, but another time I'd love to. So check out We Love Lucid, and I'll interview Lauren on the podcast as soon as possible as well. Which reminds me, I am doing the TED Talk. It is the 13th of July. Some of you may have seen my shout out on Facebook to say that the TEDx Norwich talk that I'm going to be doing, as you probably know, with TEDx talks, everybody works for free. The organisers, absolutely everybody, the speakers, no one's paid, and the guys that run it are just, I mean, goodness knows how they seem to find more hours in the day than anyone else, I'm convinced. But recently they've just had a sponsor or two pull out of the event for completely unforeseen circumstances. So a new opportunity has arisen for sponsors for the TEDx Ed Norwich talk. And so if you have a business or you know somebody who has a brand that would like to collaborate with TEDx, it is an amazing opportunity. And we're not talking particularly huge amounts of money here. But I just sort of pitch that out there. Just drop me a DM and I'll connect you with the organizer if that's something that you might be interested in, because it is a great opportunity to have that amount of exposure for your brand logo. I think last year they had at least 25,000 people watching live on the live stream, and then of course once it's uploaded to YouTube, it's infinite, really. So it's a good brand to be involved in. And if you're a business or you know someone who would like to be involved in that, just drop me a message and I'll pass you straight on. It's not anything to do with me, other than that obviously I want the event to be a huge success, and it would be great if all the funding is there and in place. So my self-care tip, well, it's very simple. I'm sure I've said this to you before. But it's get out in nature and take your shoes off. That's the important one. When I was at the beach, it was actually quite cold. And I remember thinking, shall I actually put my bare feet on the sand? And I thought, it's really important to do that. You really need to earth yourself. So if you can get to the sea, even better, and walk on the beach barefoot. If not, then just on some grass, just on the ground, outside, preferably in nature, feet on the ground, and just sense that connection. It's so powerful. It really makes such a huge difference, and particularly if it's not long since you've given up drinking. If you're anything like me, for the first, I don't know how long, couple of weeks at least, you can feel very ungrounded. It's a really weird feeling. You feel kind of spacey and just not quite connected. And this is just a teeny simple tip that helps to ground you. I'm going to be bringing you an interview soon as well with an amazing naturopathic doctor that I interviewed for UK Health Radio, Dr. Linda Lancaster. I absolutely love the work she's doing. The book's called Harmonic Healing, and she talks very much about this, about the importance of grounding, the importance of things like sea salt baths, which are really good for you, and liver cleansing. So we're going to have a whole podcast on how we can boost our liver health, if you like, our energy centre. So that's coming soon. As you know, I've got a podcast lined up with Matt Smith. I think I mentioned that, ex-Talk Sport presenter, and lots of good stuff in the pipeline. So drop me a line if you've got any suggestions of anybody you'd like me to interview. I can always give it a try. Don't forget, it's at Janey Lee Grace. The email is janey@janeyleegrace.com, and we do have a nice little PDF of resources just with some suggestions on there for things you might want to do, with some juices you might want to make, a few tips that we've just gathered together. So if you send me your email address, I'll just get that straight off to you. I won't bombard you with emails every day. It's not that kind of thing at all. I look forward to seeing you, talking to you next week, seeing some of you on the 17th, some of you on the 26th, some of you maybe on the 13th of July for the TED Talk. That's a lot of dates I'm throwing at you. Have a fantastic week, and lovely to be able to share this stuff with you on the podcast. And if you are in the early days, keep strong, keep inspired, and give yourself a super big hug, because what you're doing is amazing. Thank you for listening to the Alcohol Free Life podcast with Janey Lee Grace. Please subscribe to us on iTunes, rate us, share on social media, and tune in again.